I think I'll get us started just laying out what the format is going to be for tonight, and maybe the rest of our committee members will file in. So tonight's agenda, the first thing that we'll do is approve our minutes. On the notes to last meeting's minutes, however, it looks like we didn't approve the previous minutes from back in May 28th. So I don't know if there was a note that we were going to take a look at those minutes before approving them. So if everyone has taken a chance or has had a chance to take a look, we'll do a quick roll call for Javier, how are we approving the minutes? Are we doing roll call, or are we just nodding, or excuse me, are we just waiting on the screen?
I think Roberto, I think the last group did a roll call on them.
Okay. I'm gonna do roll call based on the well, I don't have a list of the committee members. I have like who was present and absent from the minutes. I'm guessing that's all inclusive. So if you guys can unmute yourself when I call your name and just give an affirmative for the roll call. Councillor Ali?
Yes.
Angela Taylor? Andy?
Yes.
Ann Dolphin?
Yes.
Sarah McMath? Jennifer Dubel?
Yes, Dubel.
Dubel, excuse me. I put the wrong emphasis in the wrong syllable. Jennifer Babu?
Yes.
Michael Loring? Elizabeth Lapierre? Laura Russell-Better?
Yes.
Laura Fries?
Yes, it's actually Freeze, but it's a common mistake.
Oh, same thing. Excuse me. Christina Smith? And Lita Semrau?
Yes.
Excellent. And I'm here as well, of course. All right. So like I said, tonight's meeting, we're getting to a little bit more detail from the architects. So it's pretty exciting, and we're also going to have a chance to make some recommendations, some priority items. So with that quick little setup, I'll hand it over. Actually, I'm sorry. I did say that we had the other minutes to approve. So I'm sorry. Excuse me. So we have the May 28th. Excuse me. The May 28th minutes to approve. And if we've had a chance to take a look at those, same thing. Are we going to do another roll call for the minutes as well, Mark?
I would suggest, we could probably just do those that are present here tonight. Yeah.
All right. So I'll ask the same thing. I'll go through the same roll call. Can we do them both together in one roll call so I don't have to do this again, both the May 28th and June 25th? Can we do them all combined? I guess before we...
I think you have to do them individually.
All right, let's go through the May 21st first minutes. Do you have any questions or comments on the minutes?
Was everyone here at that meeting?
From the minutes, there's a roll call that the attendees are listed. So I can say who was on that meeting if you guys want. Angela Taylor was there, Lita Semro, and Dolphin, Sarah McMath, Jennifer Dubell, and I mispronounced it again. Jennifer Babu, Michael Loring, Elizabeth Lapierre, Anna Russell Better, Laura Fries was there, or were present rather, and Councillor Ali, myself, and Christina Smith were absent, and that's from June 25th. Excuse me, June 25th.
So what I was going to say that you can just call from the list in front of you so that you don't have to be looking at the screen. The minutes that you have the names of those who were there. So you just call from that.
Yep, so those are the names that I just called. Those are from the minutes. So are we doing a roll call on the minutes? Is that what we're? The other two meetings, the other two BLACs did not do this. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, one of them I did. I think Longfellow did a roll call vote. I don't remember if Reiki did or not. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do the roll call then. And again on June 26th, on 25th minutes. Angela Taylor.
Sorry, yes. Did I just say yes? Yes.
Yep. So we're just approving them. So a yes will be a quick affirmative. Yeah. Lita Semro.
Yes.
And Dalton.
Yes.
Sarah McMath.
Yes.
Jennifer Dubell.
Yes.
Jennifer Babil.
Yes.
Michael Loring. He's not here. Elizabeth Lapierre. Laura Russell Better.
Yes.
Laura Fries.
Yes.
Pais Ali.
Yes.
And Christina Smith. Okay. Did I miss anyone? Andy Dolphin?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waving quickly.
That's all right. All right. So now I think I can hand it over to Mark and Lisa.
Great. All right. Thank you very, very much, Roberto. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the August 27th meeting of the Building Level Advisory Committee for Presumpscot School. And let me just change my display to full screen here, and we'll get going in this. And as our chair, Roberto, announced, this is digging into the specific detailed scope of the school. So we're going to kind of text heavy tonight, and apologize for that, but we'll try to move through it. And we think it's important. We've been kind of dealing at the scope at a high level for a long time and not really digging into the sort of specifics of what's going to be included in the renovation work itself. So we're gonna dig down into that deeper dive of what is intended to go into the construction documents for each of the spaces in the building. So this is important stuff. It's not highly visual. So instead of listening to me drone on for about 20 minutes, I'm going to try to do about 10 minutes and then give it to Lisa for the other 10 minutes to kind of break up the monotony of what we're dealing. But as we go through, we encourage you, if you have questions, raise your virtual hand. I think everyone knows how to do that through the panelist tab in Zoom by now. And then we'll sort of pause and allow the chairs to call on you. So either Councillor Ali or Mr. Rodriguez can call on you to be recognized, and we'll answer your questions. So that as we move through. One of the other aspects of our discussion tonight with respect to the scope of the work is we had hoped at the beginning to do a lot more than we had funds available to do. And so we started to identify what will become an alternate scope items. And so we want to have a discussion around that with this group who knows the building more intimately than sort of the other committees that we're and folks that we're dealing with. And so So we're going to discuss some of these alternates and understand if there's a priority or some things that are more important than others in order for that information to then move into our documents in a way that captures your sense of what is important if we have funds available. And then we're going to quickly go through just where we are in the time and then identify where our next meeting is. And so we have we've allotted an hour for the meeting tonight. The good news is you folks are the last group this week, or this month, so that means that we have the opportunity if it goes a little longer, but we've been seeing that it actually doesn't. It's been about an hour-long discussion, so we have 15 minutes left and we'll be efficient in going through this, but we think it's important. So what is an alternate? So some on this committee know, certainly Lita knows from practicing as an architect, but an alternate is an item that we identify in the documents at the time that we're designing it that will ask the contractor to price separately. And the analogy I've been using is if you went to a restaurant and you ordered your entree comes with a certain complement of food. If you want something additional, the dessert, that's an extra, that's an alternate. And so it's not built into the base price that comes with your meal, but it's an extra that you can, if you had funds available, you might purchase. And so those alternates are what we're going to have a conversation at the end of the night. And the way that we're building this in the prioritization from this committee is similar to what we did at LISATH, where we've developed a list, and if there are other ideas, we'll listen to those and we'll prioritize those. And that prioritized list will be presented to the DABC and the school board. And so at the time that we award the projects, if there is funds that are unspent from awarding the base contracts, then that money will be considered for inclusion of additional scope items into the projects. And because there are 3 projects, it will be important for the consideration of not just the alternates from one school, but really thinking about how those alternates are prioritized at all 3 schools. And ultimately, it'll be the DABC and the school board that will have sort of the decision-making on which ones are included. But as part of that, the voice of this group is really important in identifying what those are and establishing what you think are the most important alternates. So with that, we will get into the detailed scope discussion here. Are there any questions on alternate? I'll just kind of pause for a second here before we move to the detailed scope. All right, seeing no hands. So this is an axonometric of what the building will look like with the addition. So as you can see, the addition almost looks as large as the existing building. In the front of the building, you can see the entrance addition. So there's a new administration area and entrance, and that is shown with an exaggerated roof form right now, just to signify that this is the entrance and give a little different character to it instead of just a flat roof. And so we're looking at that right now. And we're also starting a discussion about how that impacts some of the sidewalks in the front and the walkway going up to it. But that is the new admin entrance onto the front of the building. You can also see the skylight that we're putting into the lobby, a larger skylight that will add a lot of nice natural light as you come into the entrance of the building. At the end of the building, you can see where the addition is shown to replace the portables, and it's largely going in the location of the portables. You can see the taller volume at the cafeteria, and we'll look at the floor plan looks like, but this gives you some sense of what the size of the addition is in the back and the addition in the front. And these are, as I'm reminded by Lisa the last meeting, these are just masses. They're not full final design of what the additions are, but they start to give you a sense of the size of them and how they join to the existing building. So the floor plan, I think most of you may be familiar with by now, having seen it a few times, and we don't expect that you can pick out the room names from this diagram. With the information that was sent to you, the presentation that was sent to you, it's actually fairly clear enough that if you wanted to zoom into the floor plan, you can see pretty well what all the spaces are. And it's starting to settle down now. So most of the spaces are starting to kind of settle into their final locations with their sizes. And we're now actually starting to layer in things such as electric rooms and telecommunication rooms. So the green are the additions, and so that gives you, as you look at it quickly, you can get a sense of that's new construction, and so you can see the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten classroom wing that we're adding on. You can see the lobby to the cafeteria. You can see the art and music room, and you can see the warming kitchen adjacent to the cafeteria. So that's the addition in the back, as well as we have instructional math coach and Title I instruction rooms in the back as well. And we have addition of some toilet rooms in the back. In the front, you also see the administration area with the reception, principal conference room, and the nurse area, and then a reconfiguration of some of the spaces in the front, what is now the front of the building, into some special services and functions as part of the admin with the records and storage and OTPT. So those are, as we've seen them in the past, the lobby reconfiguration in blue. So the color coding is that mint green for new construction, and then we have blue for heavy construction, and then we have very light construction, which is that very light gray color for the existing building itself. And so as we've discussed, most of the funds that have been set aside for Presumpscot are really going into the new construction, which is more extensive than the other two schools that we're designing right now. As we look at that in 3 dimensions, sort of if we sliced off the roof, this is what it looks like. So it gives you a sense of how that lays out. And so those colors are important because as we go down through this document, they correspond to the different scope areas that we're going to talk about. So the whole building is the everything. So it doesn't matter what color it is. These scope items are throughout, and they include a public address system. So replacing the current public address system that's in the building with a new one, new data and rewiring of existing data outlets, clocks in the classrooms, a fire sprinkler system throughout the building, a fire alarm or an upgrade to the fire alarm system, security cameras throughout the building. Also part of the security system would be the access control at the exterior doors to the building, so they can be monitored and programmed, and ADA signage throughout the building, and replacement of electrical outlets with tamper-resistant electrical outlets, and that's a code requirement now. So those will be done throughout the building. The additionally to that, there'll be a new teaching walls in the classrooms themselves, and so the well, we're not doing any other excuse me renovations to the classrooms. We will be adding short throw projectors and whiteboards. I'm going to take a sip of water here. All right. Continuing on, the heavy renovation, which is the blue areas. So the lobby is going to get that new skylight we're showing with the 12-foot by 12-foot skylight with a new hard ceiling in the lobby, and then seating. We're showing some benches in there that are built in, and some stadium. We're calling it stadium seating, but it's tiered seating that invites people to come and sit in the lobby as they're waiting to get picked up, or if there's a small group that is gathering. So that's happening in there. We're also going to provide new flooring, which will be rubber flooring, rubber tile flooring, and and then we'll give it an upgrade with fresh paint, and there's we'll paint the existing walls, doors, and windows in that area. So that lobby will feel very new, feel very refreshed when that is done. So, and then also those other blue spaces that we talked about that are currently being recreated from spaces in the front of the building, those will have new ceilings put in with new light fixtures, and in the OTPT will provide a ceiling support for mounting equipment used in that program. We'll inventory the casework that's necessary in those rooms, so we'll provide a complement of storage cabinets and countertop space in those rooms, and we'll be meeting with teachers in the upcoming weeks to identify exactly what that casework should be. And then the flooring throughout those newly configured spaces will be rubber tile flooring with a rubber base. And then we'll have new ventilation in the rooms that we're creating. And so those spaces will get, because they're being broken up in a different way, we'll reconfigure the ventilation system so that they are receiving fresh air in them. We'll also provide over off of them. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you want to come, just because I see a hand raised, do you want to
Yes.
come to wait for questions? Or do you want to take them?
No, we'll take a pause right now and go ahead, Roberta, if you want to call on.
Yeah, so Laura Fries had her hand raised a couple of slides ago. Laura?
Yeah, if Mark, can you go back to the what was being added to all of the classrooms?
Yeah, let's make sure that I get to the right spot here. Right there.
Sorry, slide 9.
Hey, let's go. Let's see, I think it's.
No, you're on the wrong line. 9.
Yeah, trying to. There we go.
I was just curious what the short throw projector is, and how is that different than what? Is that an upgrade from what's in there now?
So the short throw, what we've been doing is mounting the latest technology of the short throw projectors, which are most of them are DLP, which is a level of technology where the crispness of the projector is advanced, and it's calibrated onto a whiteboard so that you can either use the whiteboard as a marker board, or it can be used in concert with the short throw projector. And so that right now, again, it would be an upgrade over what is currently in many of those your classrooms.
Angie, maybe you can answer, does every classroom right now have that? Or are there some that don't have anything?
There are some that don't have anything.
Okay, awesome. No, I think that making sure that there are upgrades for that type of technology is awesome. I just wasn't sure what the term short throw projector meant. So thank you, Mark.
It's a very cool thing.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see it in action. So, all right. Thank you, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Laura. So I'll just try to do a better job of monitoring for hands too.
Yeah, that's all right. And I'll keep an eye on it, and maybe I'll interrupt you when I see it.
Excellent. Oops. So I think we were at the toilet rooms, the heavy renovation. So the ADA compliant single toilet rooms are, will have ceramic wainscot around the walls and ceramic tile floor, and they'll have a hard ceiling, and it's just wonderful that we're adding more staff toilets in the building. So that's the exciting part for that. For the newly created faculty workroom, we'll provide a new rubber flooring. We'll have new acoustic ceiling with new light fixtures, and then we'll have new casework, which will include a kitchenette. In the room itself, we'll have the mailbox cubbies that we've often, we'll figure out if the faculty room is the right location for those, but that's in the past where it's made sense to put them. And then as part of the kitchenette, there will be a sink, a place to plug a refrigerator in, and some storage in the room as well. and then I will start to, I'll turn it over to Lisa for a review of what the scope items are for the additions. Lisa?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here with everybody and going over the addition detailed scope. So as you saw from the 3D image, there's some pretty big additions going on to the Presumpscot school. The exterior walls of those additions will have a veneer. It will either be a brick veneer or what we're calling a high performance concrete panel. And what that is anybody that's seen the addition going over on Lysis to the front of the school, there's kind of a light gray panel on the front of that school. That is the high performance concrete panel. So that will be in areas of this school as well. There'll be exterior insulation, and the makeup of the exterior wall will have the appropriate air vapor barriers, gypsum wall boards, metal studs, and insulation on the inside as well. The windows at the admin and classroom addition will be new dual pane operable windows with low E glazing, and the cafeteria and connector will have insulated aluminum storefront system with dual pane low E glazing. And so in the next meeting, you'll start to see more of the articulation of those windows, the locations of those, and how we're really starting to look at the views from the inside of the building out to the great site that you guys have at Presumpscot. Next slide. So the detailed scope of the interior, and this is kind of in general what is going to be going on. The corridors will be 8-inch CMU, very durable, painted. Partition walls will be metal studs with 5/8 abuse-resistant gypsum board, also very durable. The doors, the interior doors will be a solid core wood veneer door with a vision panel. And so the vision panel is a small slender window so you can see in and out of the room, and that will have a safe, what we call safety glazing, and so that just is harder to break through than traditional glazing. And then they'll have the storeroom function lock on those doors. The exterior doors will be aluminum storefront thermally broken entry systems with insulated glazing. And the interior vestibule doors will be similar. At the admin, that vestibule will be treated a little bit differently. That will be more of what we call a hardened entry. You won't visibly be able to tell that it's hardened, but what that second set of doors will have in it school guard glazing, and that's a glass or glazing that is also known as a safety glazing, but is even harder to penetrate. You actually take about 6 minutes to get through that glazing. And essentially what that does is it slows down anybody that is trying to get into the building and allow time for emergency personnel to get to the building. In that vestibule, what I'm talking about, there will also be at the vestibule, the admin will be right next to that with a window, transaction window to the admin. That will also be hardened with safety glazing, as well as an armor core, which is essentially a Kevlar layer within the wall. Card readers will be on those entry doors, as well as multiple doors around the exterior of the building. And we'll have paint at all of the new metal door frames, CMU walls, gypsum wall boards, so essentially paint on all of the surfaces. Next slide. The detailed scope at the admin, the interior, will have suspended acoustical ceilings and light fixtures. The flooring material in this space will be carpet, and at the walk-off area right inside the entry, there will be a walk-off mat to help get particulates off of people's shoes. As an aside, these projects, the additions will be LEED certified per the city ordinance at a silver level. The casework will be, there'll be casework in the admin space where there's the administrator and the desk, as well as different areas throughout the admin addition, in particular the nurse area as well. And we talked about the security window, which I mentioned previously. At the nurses area, we'll also have suspended acoustic ceiling tiles with new light fixtures. The flooring in the space will be a rubber tile, and we'll have a 6-inch rubber base. And the toilet room in this space will have a tile floor and tile wainscot. The laundry area, there will be provisions for a side-by-side washer and dryer as well. Another thing to note is in the design of the nurses area, there is a separate room that we call the exam room, and this, especially in the time of COVID, is a area where you can sort of isolate people that may have any kind of illness away from others in the building. Next slide. And then the detailed scope items, interior, the nest, and breakout spaces. So these are the different collaboration spaces throughout the additions. And so areas where people can pull off in small groups or one-on-one, or even large groups in some areas. We will have gypsum board ceilings in these areas with acoustical clouds. And so anyone that isn't familiar with what those are, is they are ceiling systems that are usually come in some fun shapes that we can suspend from the ceiling. They have acoustical properties, especially for children. It's nice because it brings down the scale of the space. It provides some exciting features within the space and provides an identity to each of these areas. Also emphasizes wayfinding to the building. The flooring will be a rubber tile with a 6-inch base, and there will be built-in benches and stadium seating in certain areas so groups can gather together. Next slide. And then the detailed scope in the addition for the cafeteria and warming kitchen. We will also have new rubber flooring in the cafeteria. We will have a suspended acoustical ceiling and light fixtures. The glazing along the south interior elevation. So we'll have glazing on the corridor between the classroom area and the cafeteria, so you have that visual connection between the spaces. We will install acoustical wall panels around the perimeter of the cafeteria to help negate some of the noise in that space. And then we will paint the walls and metal frames throughout that space as well. And in the warming kitchen, we'll provide equipment for the warming kitchen program. Next slide, there we go. And then the detailed scope items for the pre-K and K classrooms. So similar materials. The flooring will be the rubber tile. The casework will be provided in each of these classrooms. There'll be a minimum of 18 cubbies in each of these classrooms, as well as storage cabinets and a teacher wardrobe for personal belongings. There'll be new unit ventilators in these spaces, suspended acoustical ceilings, and new light fixtures, power and data. The plumbing, we will have 2 new sinks in every pre-K and K classroom at different heights. There is a ADA height for children as well as an ADA height for adults at this age level. And we'll provide also a bathroom with a sink and toilet and floor drain in each of these classrooms. And the interiors, very similar to a lot of the addition. I won't get into it in too much detail, but essentially fresh paint. We'll have tile in the bathrooms. We'll have a teacher wall. This is a little bit different in the younger grades of pre-K and K. We use what's called a wall talker system, and it's essentially a finish system we apply to the wall. It goes all the way to the floor, to the top of the door. It's magnetic whiteboard surface, which is great for the young kids sometimes sitting on the floor at lower heights to be able to do work on the whiteboard or even hang things on the magnetic surface. And we'll also have a tack surface within the space as well. Next slide. And art and music. So new art and music room in the addition as well, rubber flooring. casework specific to each of those programs. So, instrument storage and music, artwork storage, as well as supply storage and art. The major difference in the art room is a separate kiln space for the kiln, which is going to be properly ventilated. The ceilings will have essentially we will be exposing the structure and have tectum in between the structure for the acoustical underside of the deck that allows us to have a little bit larger volume in these spaces. The electrical will have new light fixtures, power data, and instructional technology. And for plumbing in the music room, we will be providing a sink. And in the art room, we will be providing 2 sinks for general purposes, as well as 1 utility sink. And we look to distribute those throughout the classroom, especially during prep time and breakdown time, to where you have different groups trying to wash hands, so you don't have everybody kind of congregating in one area. And then in the interior, fresh paint on all of the new surfaces. So with that, we're going to pause for a minute before we get into our discussion on alternates, just to make sure that nobody has any questions before we jump into the next segment of our presentation.
So we have one hand just came up, Sarah McMath.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering, are the breakout spaces on the existing, I think you said that there would be work on the breakout spaces. Are those marked on the floor plan, or am I just missing them? Or is that to be sort of decided as it goes along?
That's a great question. I think, Mark, if we can go back to the axon and kind of show what we're referring to as breakout spaces. And sometimes we use terms that may not be articulated that way on the floor plan too, so we apologize. But we can point out which of those spaces we're referring to. There we go. So one of those, yep, exactly. So right where Mark has his cursor, at the end of the kindergarten and pre-K wing, there's a breakout space at the end of the hallway. There's another one right outside of the cafeteria between the math coach and the music room. And then there's another one marked kind of in the lobby, kind of a breakout stadium seating area right in the lobby area right there.
Thanks. Sarah, was that all of your question, right?
That was it. Thank you.
Excellent. Jennifer?
Yes, I'm curious about windows in the art room, the Title I, math coach, speech, lit coach. Are there any light sources that are coming from the outside into those rooms?
Absolutely. So in the next iteration, you're right to point that out in this model here. They don't show up. They are in the current model that you will see in the next presentation. All of those spaces do have natural light provided through windows.
I'm also curious about the second story or second tier on the cafeteria. Why is there a raised roof? I'm curious because of acoustics that are happening in our current space.
So in those larger spaces, the volume actually helps us with the acoustics. Being able, if it's too low, sometimes it will reverberate even more. So we have to proportion the space, the overall space and the volume appropriately. And then there will be treatments along the walls as well to help with that. The rubber floor also helps quite a bit with both foot impacts, but also it helps, it's not as reflective as the VCT floors. And then you will have ceiling treatments as well.
Thank you.
The other additional above the warming kitchen is a mechanical space too. So while that shows another level that's higher, that volume houses mechanical equipment that serves the addition.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other hands raised. Lisa, I don't know, Mark or Lisa, who's gonna continue.
Just say, sorry, I lost my little hand icon that was there, and now I can't figure it out. I assume with LEED, you'll meet all the comm check and everything for insulation and all that. I noticed you had a lot of aluminum storefront, but is that in the hallways in public areas versus classrooms? I know you're not getting that far into the detail.
Yeah, Lita, that's just entrances, and so windows will be a higher performance system than storefront. So.
Okay.
And you are right, Lita, that we are required to have at least the additions be LEED silver. We're working with Thornton Tomasetti right now to go through and make sure we're in compliance with all of the necessary credits as well as the energy model.
And just a note, when you were talking about most of the overall, the sprinkler and all that, and some of the ADA, the majority of those are code requirement. I know
right.
this is
good point.
And you didn't you didn't say that, but
right.
I know that question will probably come up, but they are code.
Yeah.
Great to point that out.
All right. Good. If there are questions that pertain to the overall building design, we can certainly discuss those. So for the consideration for alternates, what we wanted to bring forward in the existing classrooms, we what we often see is that, or there are oftentimes where somebody will pull a table and chairs out into the corridor in schools, and we often see that there's a desire to have a quieter place, maybe for a one-on-one instruction, or even for an individual to work, that if they need something that's outside of the classroom itself. And so in addition to that, we also think of them as providing identity throughout the building. So instead of just having two walls with doors on each side that we kind of call the double loaded corridor, these things start to impart, they break up the environment visually and create these wayfinding areas. And so we've kind of looked at the fusion of those two functions together, the wayfinding node and the individualized or small one-on-one instruction type space, and created what we called classroom nodes. And so those are modeled in the lower left corner. You can see what those look like. And so sometimes they are themed around the grouping of a classroom grade level, or they can be in just wings of a building, and it just provides that. So that was something that we included in LISETH as an alternate for consideration. We thought it would be worth sharing that as consideration for alternates for this. Otherwise, there's really no work in the existing corridors. They'll look just like they do now. The interior doors is another one where we're providing new doors in the reconfigured spaces and in the new space, but you can see that doors are areas that get distressed over time, and also the doors in some of the existing spaces have much larger vision panels that don't have security glass in them. And so the new doors that we're putting in have smaller vision panels that do have a laminated glass that's safer. And so it also brightens up the appearance. So as you walk through the building, the areas that you can't just put a coat of paint on the doors, they're oftentimes stained wood and that have chips and dings in them over time. So that was another consideration for alternate investment there. The also thinking about the existing hallways, an alternate would be to upgrade the finishes throughout the school, in the existing school, in the hallways, which we would use a rubber floor instead of the current VCT. So you can see the existing corridors on the picture in the lower left corner. And so it would replace that white floor tile with a softer and more and quieter floor material that maybe has color on it as well. And we would also put in a new ceiling with new lighting and upgrade the paint in the corridors as well. So that would be an alternate for consideration that currently is not in the budget for the school. And another consideration for alternate would be to replace the unit ventilators, the units that are in the classrooms that provide the fresh air, and we would upgrade the quality of those units with current technology, and so that's one consideration. The other one is in looking at those, whether they are steam or hot water, but that's just part of the HVAC system itself. Another consideration would be the exterior wall, where right now we're not adding any insulation, and so would be consideration of adding 3 inches of rigid insulation or some type of insulation on the interior face of the exterior walls. So those masonry walls were constructed at a time when energy was less expensive than it is now, and we weren't as conscious of the amount of energy that we were expending. And so adding insulation on the exterior would also require, though, that we add new walls on the interior sides of the building. So that is not just as simple as adding the insulation. So everything on those interior faces has to be then removed and replaced. The other consideration is, in addition to the new unit ventilators and air handlers, would be to upgrade the system that controls all of the mechanical equipment. So that would be replacing the air, or the pneumatic systems that have that are old technology with the current digital technology, which is more reliable and easily programmed for more energy savings. And so that would be something in addition to the unit ventilators. And so that's kind of the consideration of items that we were initially listing as alternates, and we'd love to know if there are some thoughts about the prioritization of those alternates, or other things that those of you who are very familiar with the school would consider as well, or might consider.
Yep. So we have Laura raise her hand.
Mark, I just have 2 questions. What's the difference between the new HVAC that you have listed on the slide as compared to the unit ventilators? What's the difference between those?
Yeah, there's an overlap in some of that scope. So the unit ventilator itself is part of the new HVAC. So the one would be looking at air handlers in the building, and there aren't that many, because most of the spaces are really served by, as those are familiar with the classrooms, it's that, the unit that sits on the exterior wall that you has that loud fan that you turn on and off. But there are spaces that have a larger central air handler that brings fresh air into the building. So the new HVAC would look at both air handlers and the air handlers and unit ventilators as, but one of them just looks at, okay, the classrooms, we're going to replace all the outdated unit ventilators so one of them is just a smaller scope than the other.
Okay, thank you. And also, will we be voting on what alternates we feel are highest priority, or does it depend on what we have for extra money laying around, or how does that process work?
So what we are trying to understand from the committee tonight is where your priorities are when the determination is made after bids are opened that there is available funds, because perhaps the bids came in lower. So it's not a guarantee. It's if we have favorable bidding and there is money available, the recommendations of this committee would go to the building level, or the district advisory building committee. So the DABC would understand where your priorities are relative to these alternates, and they would then, in concert with the school board, make a determination if how the available funds would be spent amongst the alternates for all of the 3 schools.
Okay.
And Laura, the way we've done it in the other groups is really just to open it up for conversation and see if there's consensus as to which ones kind of rise up higher in the list, knowing that we will revisit this list as the project develops to really solidify that order.
Okay, so Mark, based on what you just said, it sounds like if there is extra money, we may not even see any of that. It could go to one or both of the other schools. Is that correct?
It would be up to the DABC and the school board at that time. So
Okay.
not sure what type of information that would weigh into that decision, but what we're doing right now is sort of treating every one of the designs through the same lens, the same process of identifying what were the alternates and what were the committee's priorities of those alternates.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would turn to Andy and the teachers as far as what they feel some of the biggest needs are for the school, but that's just my perspective.
Next we have Sarah had raised her hand, and Lita, I see you raising your hand. So we had a couple other people, and then we'll get to you for sure. Sarah.
Sarah, you're on mute.
I think I'm just not talking loud enough. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, but still not very loud though.
Yeah, sorry. I was just curious about the HVAC piece. Is some of that going to be, is there already some HVAC work going on in terms of the COVID, like the COVID changes that we need for this year? And how does that, what would the difference be between what you're talking about and what is going to be happening already?
It's a great question, and we'll turn to to Steve Stilfen for a response on what upgrades are right now planned for Presumpscot with the mechanical systems. Steve?
We're planning for the district and district-wide. It started at Reiki, specific to unit ventilators and air handlers, like Mark just described in the larger gym areas on the return supply duct. We're putting in technology that's called ionization or cold plasma field generators, which produce the breakdown of water and reconstitution of the water molecule. That in ionization, if you understand what that is in a general sense, is a positive to a negative that scrubs down the air, and it has effectiveness to viruses, anders, dust, so forth and so on. So we're starting at Reiki, and we're covering all of our air supply to increase our air quality throughout the district. I'm in the process right now of finalizing the numbers required for these units to be installed. We have vendors doing it now, as I said, at Reiki. So that's one phase. We've also installed UVC light, but lighting panels in certain areas where there may be higher risk of COVID. And UV light C has been found to actually kill the COVID virus. So those are the things in the steps we're taking now. We're also doing windows, making sure that, excuse me, every classroom, and it's odd to say this, but every classroom will have a window that is operable. We hope that many of our classrooms, and we do have many of our classrooms, have multiple windows that open. So we're running through the process and repairing windows as we wait for these windows to be manufactured and delivered to us to be installed. That's the steps we're taking right now for COVID.
Steve, are you doing any maintenance on the unit ventilators? I don't know if I missed that or not.
Maintenance has been done in our partnership with the city. They're semi-annually opened up. Filters are changed. The highest level MERV filter that we can apply to this equipment without stalling it or choking it down is primarily in our unit ventilators is MERV 8. In our newer schools with larger, newer equipment. They're able to take the MERV 13s. We're putting MERV 13s in. So basically, we're putting the thickest filter to trap the most particulate in our unit ventilators that don't destroy the performance of them. So yes, we're doing maintenance throughout the district on all the ventilators. And as you may know, our custodial staff changes the filter itself every year, twice a year. And the city comes in and primarily in the summer checks the motors, the belts, the controls, oils them up, and does the preventive maintenance to them, vacuums them out. So yes, that's being done.
So Sarah, I think that the big difference is that what this alternate would do is replace equipment, not necessarily the ionization that Steve talked about, but replace the basic unit that provides the ventilation into the rooms.
I'd like to just add to that, as we look at Presumpscot in our schools like Reiki Presumpscot in their ages, this technology was installed in the late 70s, early 80s. There's tremendous difference in the equipment today. And in particular, with looking at the new HABAC, if we could go to a condensed hot water system from that boiler rather than steam, there's opportunities to look at retrofit unit ventilators the same size as what you see in your rooms now, that if we used some of the newer retrofits, that there's a potential that we could do energy recovery and variable refrigerant flows within the same unit, which simply means heating and air conditioning. So there are different levels of new technology, and I think Mark's just fallen out of his chair here now because we're thinking Dakin's type of technologies that are actually just loading more or dedicated outside air in. So to investigate that further would be really interesting, and as we work through this process.
I'm not falling out of my chair so much as I think some of the teachers might be falling out to understand that there's the future potential for air conditioning in the building.
It's expensive, but it can be done.
And we'll go to Jen. Sarah, was that?
So my name's Michael, by the way. Sorry, I just logged on to her. The question I have is heat pumps. Are they a viable option?
For the new space, Mike, or for
all? Is that a potential option?
So right now, for the classrooms, it would be dedicating, or it would be looking at both a heat pump also in combination with a ventilation system. So the heat pump itself would do heating and cooling, and then we would do some type of a fresh air system for ventilation itself. And where we already have a heating plant in the building, and we haven't been looking at air conditioning, we haven't looked at the direction of the heat pump. Heat pumps are great, most efficient when we can use them for both heating and cooling. That's when the sort of they make the most sense. But so right now, because we've been primarily looking at mostly heating, the most sort of efficient, cost-efficient system in the classrooms, existing classrooms, a unit ventilator, and in the other ones, we've been looking at the perimeter heat. The other aspect that we like about doing a perimeter heat with a separate from ventilation, an air ventilation system, is that it provides a great deal of comfort. And so that conductance near the exterior of the wall, that with a heat pump system, it's primarily circulating air either at the ceiling level or at a wall unit. And so there's a comfort aspect of it, and also the idea that the efficiency of not putting air conditioning in the buildings, we go with the heat side only.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. And we'll go to Jennifer and then Lita after that.
I just wanted a moment to look at the previous slide. We're on the continued slide for a while, and thank you.
Whoops. I'm sorry about that, Jennifer. Let me just get it back.
Good. And then you didn't have a question. You just wanted it to be pulled up. All right. And then we'll go to Lita.
Lita, you're on mute.
Yep. Mark, I'm trying to understand because I'm actually, my kid goes to a different school. I was just put on this one because I'm an architect. On the heating systems that are in the existing, are they individually for each room?
Right now, the unit ventilators are. Yeah.
I hate to say it because normally that's the first thing, upgrade HVAC, but there's something right now in COVID that's magical with the air staying with the classroom instead of a major system that could leak or could take air from one classroom to the other. Normally, that is so against everything I've done until the last 6 months. The other thing, I don't know if you've looked at, they're saying that bathrooms, because of flushing, has a lot to do with putting water particulates into the air. Is there any way to, within the budget, to make more separate bathrooms in the area that you have the bathrooms, and that way you're able to dedicate the bathrooms to classes, so you have limited contamination? Because right now we are going back to 2 days a week for most kids. And so that's something kind of, I didn't know if you had a chance to look at, and I'm trying not to blow the budget.
Right. That's interesting, Lita. The other aspect of that is trying to make our plumbing, trying to hit our plumbing fixture counts, which when we start to develop more individualized toilet rooms, they start to eat up a lot more space. So we either reduce the number of fixtures that we're providing, or we
not individual, just I don't know. I haven't, sorry, I didn't have this thought until after you were off the plan. If there's any way to basically, instead of having a boys and a girls gang bathroom, to have 2 girls, 2 boys.
Oh,
And basically just dividing your gang, rotating it 90 degrees, and being, because I know you're supposed to hit a certain number of toilets.
Right.
Urinals, but is there any way so that classrooms ABC use 1 female and 1 male, and DEF use the other one?
Yep, exactly. That's interesting. We'll look at that. That's something we hadn't considered. So and seeing if the layout can accommodate that.
And then I'm going to have something that totally blows the budget.
Okay.
And I expect to know, but is there any way to, in the existing, to look at individual sinks, once again, trying to keep the air particulates within a classroom versus spreading it? These are all COVID. I have nothing but praise for your plan, but I also know you started this plan and then everything went to hell.
Right. Yeah. So obviously the 4 classrooms that we're creating are going to have sinks in them, and not many of the other classrooms do. And so the challenge isn't necessarily providing the supply to them. The challenge would be trying to do waste lines from all those sinks, and how would we do those in a way that's cost effective. And so that would be a more of a challenge to do that without having to slab cut to reach drains that are underneath the slab. And so it's something we can look at. There are other ways of accommodating it with pumping or something like that. But it may be that there are alternate ways of using sanitizations locations, so that maybe it's not a full plumbed sink that we can provide a solution for.
I honestly don't think that last one's viable, but just throwing it out there with the age of COVID.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll be upfront looking at what you had.
Yeah. Good. Lisa, you had a thought on that, or?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I believe a lot of the existing classrooms
have sync.
Right. So we can look at, we can evaluate that for sure to make sure that they do have things and in what condition they're in, and evaluate whether there's replacement needed and maybe where they're missing, and it may be less scope than we think it might be.
Yeah, not trying to blow your budget, but just
all good things to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day.
Every day's a little different, isn't it, than what it was?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Lita. So I see Annie has her hand raised.
Jen does as well, in case you haven't seen Jen.
I have not. So because of the way that the screen is, I can only see the list of participants. I don't know if anyone's physically raising their hand. So can we go to Annie and then?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that Jen wanted to talk, but she's having trouble raising her hand. But also, just really quickly, I heard you talking about Reiki's ventilation system, but I'm a little confused. Is Presumpscot ventilation not ready for COVID? And do we need an upgrade, or are we all set and we don't need to have that as part of the plan tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I was going to say I heard what you're doing with Reiki, but I want to know what's happening in terms of Presumpscot right now.
What's happening with Reiki is the first of our working through the district, as you're all aware, in COVID, to procure some of these things. We're working aggressively to do so. They're not independent labs on ionization of cold plasma are indicating 87 at 15 minutes. There's proof. They say they deactivate the virus. They don't say they kill the virus. They say they deactivate. So that's part of how the...
Steve, can I try to answer, because I think you're going to get way too technical on this. So we are doing standard maintenance to all of our univents. And so I think Steve described that. In addition to that, we are in the process of getting an ionizer unit to put into individual univents. We are in the process of procuring that, and we'll have those as soon as they are available. So that will help with the ventilation. In addition to that, and this is not an issue at Presumpscot, windows will open, and if you need a fan, we will also be able to procure that for you.
So how is the alternate on the table? Is that more permanent and a better integration?
Yeah, so the alternate would look at replacing the existing equipment with newer, more efficient equipment. So it has several benefits. One, it operates quieter. It operates more with less energy, and as Steve even suggested, that there's even potential that you can include both heating and cooling in a new system. So that's what the alternate would provide as an upgrade to the existing operation of the equipment. So better controllability of it, all those features.
Can I also just, remind everybody that we're just going to bid now. We will not be breaking ground on this for, a significant period of time. It will not be, built for an even more significant period of time. And, I don't know about you, but I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that we're not dealing with COVID by the time that this actually, that this building gets built.
Me too. Yeah.
However, it's extremely hard to teach in those classrooms with those units. They're extremely loud and they're non-functioning. Them smoke and smell. So I think it is a priority for our school to get them fixed and upgraded.
Thank you. So I don't see. Oh, were we going back to Jen? sorry. My screen is
Thank you.
So I don't see any other hands raised. Do you want to get to the? So did you get enough, I guess, feedback, or do we understand how we're going to give feedback on the alternatives, or do you want to move on to the timeline?
Sure. I think. Thank you, Robert. I think this has been actually a great conversation and somewhat helpful and informative. And what was a recommendation at, I believe, it was the last meeting, was actually to do a more instead of an informal conversation, to actually provide folks a survey that they could actually kind of rank them. And so we'll be sending out something where that can happen, and that way people have a little more time to think about it, and they'll be able to see them all together. And so we'll send that survey out in short order. So we'll get kind of a quantified response from folks. We appreciate everything that's been said tonight too.
Definitely. Pius has his hand raised.
Is it possible for, since the schools have most of the parents' email address, and we know that, I mean, I cannot see the attendance, so I don't know how many people are attending as parents. Before we have the a community, the public engagement or whatever it is that is on the agenda in the future date, can we share this with parents and ask them for feedback via email, the recorded version?
In the school, Angie could do that through her newsletters and other means. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Pius. Okay, Mark.
Very good. So, yeah, so thank you. So the next item and final item on our timeline is just kind of where we are on the schedule. And so we are at our August meeting of the BLAC on our fourth Thursday of the month. We have those scheduled for September, October, and November when we go out to bid for the project. And so right now, that's our current schedule. And so our next meeting is, and I'll bring it up here in a moment because Emily has put it on the slide after this, but also in here, we're getting ready to submit to the planning board. And so that's imminent. We're starting to get ready for that. So as part of that planning board process, there will also be at some point a public hearing that invites the public to participate on any comments they have about the project through the Portland Planning Board. And so that'll be a public forum. And in addition to that, we had highlighted a third public forum to update everyone on the project to occur in the fall. September is, the 1st of September is really difficult, but we'll be shortly looking at how to develop the virtual public forum, and so stay tuned for that. It'll again, we'll wait to get the school year off and running here. And so that's kind of where we are in the overall project. And then our next meeting of this group, as we've been rotating, tonight we're last, and so it was nice not to have the pressure of having to get off of the call here immediately, but we're second in the next rotation. So September 24th at 6:30 to 7:30 is the Presumpscot BLAC meeting, and we look forward to meeting with everyone at that time. And we will send out the minutes of this meeting, as well as we'll send out that survey following up with this. Principal Taylor, if you're still on, and we can connect with you at the very, very end, we just want to see if we can find coordinate a time to review some site features with you. So with that, I'll turn it back to Roberto to conclude the meeting.
All right. So thank you, Mark and Lisa, for the presentation and everyone's engagement and questions tonight. We'll take a motion to adjourn, and we can probably do it through our camera. All right, I'll take it from Angie and second by Michael. All those in favor, just wave at your camera so we can say good night to everyone. Thank you so much for staying up late with us, guys. Have a restful evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.